there. Welcome to Mind Your Own Business TV. I'm Debbie Davis. We've got a great show for you today. We have the York County District Attorney joining us today, Kathryn Slattery. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
It is great to have you on. I have not, and I shared this with you before the show, I have not really thought about what the district attorney does. So you're going to share a little bit about that with us first. But I want to know a little bit about your background. You graduated from Boston College and the University of Maine School of Law.
Yes, I did.
What made you go into law?
You know, it's kind of funny. I grew up in the 1960s when the world was being saved and changed. And I really did think about it then that, you know, I was going to be that prosecutor. I actually thought I'd be the one that would go out and actually defend people, defend their rights and you know, save the world one individual at a time.
Sure.
I buried that at some point and went on to college and everything. And I did graduate from college at the time they were saying was the worst economy ever for college graduates. I had to seriously think about what to do with my history and economics degree. And then I started thinking about law school, and that's, you know, it came to Maine to go to law school.
Wow. And you, I think it's interesting because even for that time period, law probably wasn't the most popular choice for girls.
Not at all, no.
Yeah, but those that went were just really determined to make it succeed.
Absolutely. It was things had changed, so there were more women going into the professions, but it wasn't a given that you were going to succeed.
Mm-hmm. And you became Assistant District Attorney in York County in 1987, right?
Yes, I did.
Now, you clerked before then for Governor Joseph Brennan.
I did. I was the very first law clerk to the governor of the state of Maine.
Wow.
He decided that it just said, there's other governors that have law clerks, and I'm going to interview for the job, and I got the job.
That's fantastic.
It was an incredible experience. It really was.
How long were you with him?
I was there for a year as the law clerk and then a special assistant till the end of his administration.
Those are times that we cherish. I must think that you think that way because to be in that situation at that time, but even today, to be a law clerk to a governor is pretty amazing.
So much passes through that office, and I got to see the legislative process, the political process, which I had no experience with whatsoever.
What did you think of the political process in general? I'm just curious about that.
Well, that was a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty cordial, and you know, people were really dedicated, really interested in what they were doing, but they also got along and actually achieved results at the end of the day.
No backbiting, no backstabbing,
No,
no quick run to the media microphone.
No, so it was a really good
Oh,
experience.
those were the days. So you were assistant district attorney for what, 4 years, 5 years?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mary Toussaint was the DA when I started, and I was an assistant under her. Then Michael Cantera, who's now a district court judge, was elected DA, and I was appointed his deputy in 1991.
And that's the next step up?
It's the second in command in
So
office.
you have the assistant DA, the deputy DA, and then the DA?
Yes.
Okay. And then you were elected district attorney in 2010.
Yes, Mark Lawrence didn't run for re-election,
And you said, I think I can do that.
it's my time.
I love this. I love this. Now, you are running for re-election. So I just want everybody to know that Kathryn Slattery is running for re-election for district attorney. How long is your term?
It's a 4-year term.
A 4-year term? Well, that's good. That's a lot easier than a 2-year term. Now, your primary concerns are serving victims of violent crime, victims of violent partners, and victims whose sense of personal safety and well-being have been violated by property crime. So if somebody breaks into my house, you know, I've been fortunate. I have not had that happen to me. Thank you. Thank you. But I can only imagine the thoughts of, you know, you're seeing where I live and in my drawers, and you know, some drawers you just shouldn't be looking at. Simple as that. That is a tricky thing. You haven't been physically hurt sometimes you have, but yet you've had things taken maybe, or even if you haven't, you still have to pursue, right? Tell us the process from when you call the cops, what happens then?
They respond, they take the report, any statements, photographs, there's rarely physical evidence. There's not fingerprints like you see on TV. There's not DNA, although they
not?
No, they process it for everything, but it's rare that we have the type of evidence they have on TV. And then they submit all that, and they may charge somebody at that point if they figured out who did it, and they submit all of that to my office where we review it and make a charging decision. And once we make a charging decision, we file charges with the court, or if it's a felony, we go through the grand jury process, and then the criminal justice process starts at that point.
Now, when you're deciding whether or not to bring charges, I imagine there's a lot of criteria that has to be met.
There are. We have to make sure there's enough evidence to support proof on every single element of the crime. Mm-hmm. Theft, did intentionally or knowingly exercise unauthorized control over the property of another, and then we have to prove the value of it. So that's the kind of analysis we have to go through in every single crime. Every crime has different elements. And we screen cases for proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Probable cause is the standard for bringing charges. We screen in order to see if we ultimately bring this to a jury, would we be able to prove it? Mm-hmm. So that's how we assess it. There's a lot of back and forth with law enforcement in terms of trying to say, did we need this one bit of information in order to make the determination?
As you're saying all this, I'm just thinking in my mind, this is quite an extensive process with each and every time. What's it called when the police bring you, a case or?
They bring us a case.
Okay.
And we screen it. We call it screening at that point. We screen the case to determine what happens next. We also review affidavits for arrest warrants, affidavits for search warrants, which are an essential part of the evidence gathering process. And with digital evidence, it's extremely complex now in terms of figuring out how to get that information. It got a lot of press when they were trying to get into the cell phone after the terrorist attack in California.
Right.
We do that on a everyday level with everyday crimes because everybody has a cell phone and every cell phone seems to have evidence on it. So it's pretty complex when you're really trying to get from the report of the crime to the charge.
Is it easier now with this in regard to digital evidence than it was, say, 5 years ago?
We know how to do it now, how to get it, but the digital world is evolving all the time, so it's another permutation. Can we get this the same way? We have to get search warrants for a lot of it, court orders for a lot of it, and a lot of these companies are out of state, so that's another complicating factor. They just changed the law to allow us to issue search warrants to out-of-state entities like Google, but we can't do that for every entity.
How long does it take you roughly to do this? Clearly you can't solve your case in an hour like on TV, but how long generally? Weeks?
That's really too hard to answer that, hard to quantify that. So there's two different levels of court. There's also the district court and the superior court.
Okay.
The district court handles only misdemeanors, and the superior court is all felonies. So things that go into the district court would be your traffic infractions, your traffic charges like operating after suspension.
Which we probably all know about that one.
Operating an unregistered motor vehicle.
Like
And then
that.
Your misdemeanor thefts, your misdemeanor assaults, things like that. Those all go through the district court. That is actually a quicker process because they tend to be less complex cases. However, each one needs to be read and reviewed, and we need to determine whether the charges should be brought. The felony cases have they are more complex and take a little bit more time for an attorney to sit down, review, and make sure we have enough evidence to go forward.
How busy is the York County DA office?
We are the second busiest criminal docket in the state, slightly behind Cumberland County in the number of cases we handle. I think it was right around 9,000 cases were filed last year.
Wow.
In York County. And we also have 4 separate offices, which makes day-to-day functioning more difficult. We have offices in York, Springville, Alfred, and Biddeford. That's the 3 district court locations and the superior court location. And so we might have court in 3 or 4 locations any given day.
Wow. So you must have quite a staff.
I have 17 attorneys, up from 14 when I took office, and an entire staff of 44 people,
Good Lord.
including the
that's quite a
attorneys.
bit. Your office handles quite a bit. You handle quite a bit. You have increased the domestic violence unit from 1 to 3 attorneys since you've been on board.
Yes, I have.
And what kind of case? Well, clearly domestic violence. Those are the cases that they specifically deal with those issues alone.
Those issues alone. There's a variety of charges that can be brought as domestic violence charges: criminal threatening, terrorize, assault, aggravated assault, violation of protective order, and stalking. And
Do we have a lot of that going on?
we really do.
Do we?
Yeah, and it seems that also the legislature has passed laws that say if you have one prior conviction for domestic violence assault, the next one is a felony. And
Has that slowed it any?
that I don't know. My goal is to just make sure every case gets the attention it deserves so that maybe we can stop one person from repeating the behavior, because that's really what it's all about, is making sure we're getting to the root of the criminal behavior and we don't want it to continue.
Well, how open are they to surrendering that type of information? I mean, it seems like you have to go through some kind of a process with each person in order to find out why they're doing these things and to know how to help them not do them in the future.
How open are they? Okay, what we have.
Well, if I'm smacking my husband around every night, and he finally brings charges against me, and then I come in, how are you trying to help me not do that again?
There's many tools that we can use. Most of them imperfect, but that's what we have. One of the programs that is required by the court on a domestic violence assault conviction is certified batterer's intervention. The legislature made that a component several years ago, and within the last year or two, it's been required that if we do not ask for certified batterer's intervention on a conviction, then we have to justify to the court why we're not doing it. And if the court doesn't impose it, the court has to justify why it's not doing it. There's actually a form that has to be filled out.
Accountability, right?
So, but we look at, as I said, we look at each case individually. Is it a substance abuse problem? What do we need to have as conditions of any plea or any probation to address the issues that brought you here today, and at the same time protect the partner who was injured as part of this process, protect the family, protect the children who may be injured just by the dynamic that's going on there. So that's how we approach it, to see what is the appropriate sanction here. And honestly, they're difficult cases to prove sometimes, so we also have to take that into account, try and fashion a sentence that we can get some meaningful sanctions that will address the issues behind the behavior, but also not run the risk of not getting a conviction at all.
Well, it could just bug me, Just kidding. I'm sorry. I shouldn't make light of that topic. I have some experience with that, and I understand. Elder abuse, big issue in York County or no?
I think it is.
Is it?
It's incredibly underreported, though. I don't know if you recall last year, I believe it was discovered that a lot of the referrals going to adult protective weren't being looked at all.
Yes.
Those are now being forwarded to all the DA's offices in the state. I have an attorney who's responsible for reviewing those, and he's working with Adult Protective on developing some protocols. But it is underreported. I'm actually doing some outreach over the next couple of months with different places in York County to talk to people about how they can be self-protective, basically, and what to look out for. I've had, I personally prosecuted one case that was it was so troubling, it was financial. These people kept going back to this woman's house. She hired them to do some yard work, and they kept going back. Half did it, kept telling her she needed more yard work done, and it was $80,000 to $90,000 at the end of the day.
What?
And they actually were doing it in Massachusetts as well. So it's really troubling to see that happen to somebody.
Yes.
And the banks they will alert local law enforcement if they think somebody's having money withdrawn from their account by someone who maybe shouldn't be doing it, or they're making repeated withdrawals and they're saying this is a lot of money going to this one person. But it's tough to ferret out. People don't really want to report it. They don't understand that it might be a crime that's happening to them.
Right.
And then there's the abuse and neglect. We haven't had too many cases, but those, again, it's hard to get to the people who are the victims to say this isn't right.
Wow. Tell me. Okay. Layman Way Recovery Center. Tell me how that came about.
That's really an incredible story. And I have to give credit to Greg Zinser, who's the county manager in York County. He called me in and said, listen, we have this terrible opioid addiction problem. Is there anything we can do? And we also have overcrowding at the jail. Is there anything we can do to address this problem? And that started a 3-year conversation, basically, that led us to the Layman Way Recovery Center. He brought in the people at the York County Shelter, who are very experienced in these types of treatment programs, and they basically built a program for the Layman Way Recovery Center. It's a 24 long-term residential treatment program with 12 beds for women and 12 beds for men. And that's important because there's not many beds for women anywhere.
Really?
Not at all. And it serves only the citizens of York County, only a resident of York County, because it is entirely funded by the County of York.
Well, I like that idea because you only have 24 beds. If you had to feed the whole state, I mean, it would only help a small portion.
Right, and we've had people say, but I'm at the York County Jail. Doesn't that make me a resident? No, that doesn't make me a resident of York County. So
Tricky.
The program is for people with substance use disorders who have been arrested and probably arrested and bailed and rearrested and bailed and rearrested to the point where we need to stop this. That's really what it is. Or people who are on probation who've been picked up a probation violation, and they can be, not always are, but can be held without bail. So they're screened for the center, and if the center says that you're appropriate for it, they are bailed to that program. They're not in custody while they're there. They're bailed to the program. It's a condition of their bail that they complete the program.
I see.
And if they don't, then it's a violation of their bail. But it is 6 months, intensive, and I've seen the residents interviewed, and they feel the community is behind them, and they're just so grateful for this opportunity that they've never been given before, and it's free. So insurance is not a barrier, which is really a problem for a lot of people. So only 2 of the people there have insurance.
So it's a 6-month program, which I love because opioid addiction takes more than 30 days to kick. You know, you've got that 30-day mark, but it's the 45, 60-day mark and beyond that's questionable. That they're like, and I love that it's 6 months. Do we have any people who have gone through it and completed it? How new is the center?
It opened in May.
It opened in May.
Yeah, so we haven't had any
So it's
graduates
pretty new
yet.
yet.
Yes.
Nice. Is it full?
Not yet, no.
Not yet?
No.
That's good. That's good news.
People enter and leave as expected. Jen Willette, who's running the facility, reported to the commissioners the first week in September and said that it is the population they're dealing with has a lot of trauma, like the issues are, the addiction issues are front and center, but there's a lot behind that, and
Sure.
It's been a challenge for them, but they're an incredible group. They really, at the shelter program.
It's never cut and dry.
No.
Now, you as the district attorney, I'm sure, has to meet with a lot of different entities all the time.
Oh, the advocacy groups, fellow prosecutors, police chiefs. I just met with the District 1 chiefs last week. There's no end to meetings.
There's no
meet with
just like the corporate world. Meetings every day. Love it. So tell me why you are running again for district attorney.
Well, I love what I do. I feel I'm pretty good at it. This is my career. I've dedicated my career to the citizens of York County. I feel I've served them well. The issues that are front and center for me are continuing to figure out the opioid crisis, how the criminal justice system can work better with that issue, to continue with the new York County Courthouse, which will be located in Biddeford.
Where is that going to be, by the way?
On Route 1,
Is that across from the MVets or before Coastal Beverage? There's something terrible. I don't even know where.
It's between Martin's and the Spur.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I know where it is.
there's-
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, fabulous. When is that going to happen?
They think they're going to break ground this fall.
Nice.
The issue, front and center for me, is that the district attorney does not have office space in the building.
Not yet.
Not yet. That's what we're working on, and that's very important for us to be in the building, because if not, my office will be 11 miles away in Alfred, and we are in court every day. We are the criminal docket in York County, and we physically have to be present. We file, I mean, just a matter of filing paperwork, never mind being in court and the staff that it takes to effectively prosecute cases. So my number one goal right now is to make sure we have office space in the building, and that's a matter of a negotiation between the county and the court system.
Well, nobody asked my opinion, but I mean, to me, it would be a no-brainer. You put your DA's office in the courthouse.
Everybody agrees on the proposition. It's actually
Yes.
making it happen has been an issue.
Yeah.
So, but I really feel that you need somebody in this job who is experienced and qualified. And I bring a lot of experience. I feel I'm qualified for the job, and I feel I'm the best person for the job. And I do have a track record to show that I've made improvements in the DA's office since becoming a district attorney, and I would continue to make the office a better place. But I think it's, I also want to say I have assembled an incredible staff. I have a lot of young, energetic attorneys who are really dedicated to prosecuting crime and dedicating to in the right way. They want to do some good with their careers. I have an incredible staff of county employees who are also dedicated to getting the job done. And it's a great feeling, great energy that I have in the office now, and I think I'm very proud of the work they do.
So you've been in there for 8 years as district attorney, and you're seeking another run. You know, at that point in time, at 8 years, I would think you're just getting your groove on. I mean, you've outreached in many directions. You have been the liaison in so many different areas. I mean, making the Layman Center happen is amazing. I didn't think we were able to do that here in York County. I'm so pleased with that. Is there another one possibly down the road?
The next focus is maybe on aftercare, making sure the right aftercare is in place for people when they graduate. And that's, again, where the shelter program comes in to play, because they do have an extensive network throughout York County and a lot of experience in that issue. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the first focus, and then perhaps IOP operating maybe. The facility is the old early release center. Mm-hmm. That was operated by the Department of Corrections, so it's a 64-bed facility, I believe. So only part of it is being used right now. So there's room to grow. There's room to grow. There's room for more funding as well. That's always an issue.
Oh yeah, that's always the first issue.
Yes.
Well, I think you have done a fantastic job. Has crime dropped since you have become district attorney?
It has. It's, I believe, was around 23% when I took office, and it's now around 18%.
Is there anything you would like to tell the average citizen that you think we should know in regard to crime that would help us not become a victim?
Would start with locking your car and locking your doors. I mean, that if there's a barrier to someone entering your car or entering your house, then it's harder for them. Always just be aware of where you are and what you're doing, who's around you. And beyond that, I'd say just always be self-protective. You know, mm-hmm. I'm not saying don't mistrust everyone, but don't trust everyone.
Yeah. Especially the elderly. Don't always open your door to everyone.
Right.
You know, I think of my grandmother. She was a hugger. She always loved to hug everybody. And she would just open her door and let you come in and give you a big hug. Hello, and what is your name, young man? Or what is your name, young lady?
That's wonderful.
But where she lived was a very small town, and that kind of worked for that community. But we live in a different town, and we're in a city, and lots of different things can happen. So, good advice, good words.
Thank you.
So what can a voter do to help you win this election?
I'd like to get the word out that I am experienced and qualified for the job. And, I like to say that if you don't know who I am, that's a really good thing, because that means you haven't been in contact with me either as a crime victim or as a defendant. So, but I do have the experience and qualifications for the job and the dedication for the job. This is not a stepping stone for me. This is my job.
This is what you do.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Kathryn Slattery is running for re-election for your York County District Attorney. I hope you get out and vote in November. And we'll see you next time on Mind Your Own Business TV.